known by its map designation as Area 51.
We're now learning Area 51,
known as Area 51.
Thank you for
Near
clearing that
Area
up.
51.
Thank you.
Known as Area 51.
Because Area 51 is very important.
They called him Jimmy, and everybody wanted to be his friend.
What's good? What's good? Welcome here, Area 51. Here, your host Jimmy, telling you here in Golden Era the truth about boxing. Subscribe, give us a like, and also tell about this channel to other people who are or appreciate boxing, specifically old school boxing. Here, we love boxing, and we just don't want to see it go to the shit, right? A lot of fighters nowadays are prize fighters. They like to go by the A side, B side. They want to be undefeated. They don't want to lose their undefeated record. And that's not how boxing should be. Boxing should be about the most dangerous fighter, find the most dangerous fighters to eventually become the undisputed and best champion of that division. But unfortunately, that's just something that, we are not seeing with many of these fighters, right? So here in Golden Era, that's what we approve. And you have to be, it's not about winning or losing. It's just about taking the risk and taking the challenges. And if you fight the best, you're going to lose. It's just part of boxing. If you fight the best, you are going to lose. If you are undefeated, there is something that's wrong with your record, because you should be not undefeated if you face everybody with their own styles, right? So that's something that we have here, and we, believe in Golden Era. So give us a like if you like what we have, and check our webpage, goldeneraboxing.com, where you'll learn a lot of history and everything that comes out. All right, so welcome everybody to the show. And today I want to talk about Canelo Alvarez. I've never really had an issue with Canelo Alvarez because I didn't really know him too well at first. But it was really at 154 where I started to see kind of how he moved. And I just felt like he was trying to mimic Floyd Mayweather Jr. Not that he's not a bad fighter, but that he was trying to avoid certain fights. And one of the fighters that he avoided was Dimitrius Andrade. He avoided other fighters when he was in 154. Andrade held the WBO, if I'm not mistaken, and Canelo never really wanted that fight. And he actually left his title vacant there at one point, if I'm not mistaken. That was some time ago. And that was the fight that a lot of us wanted to see, but we never got to see it. Canelo never fought Dimitrius Andrade, and he didn't rematch Arizona Lara. And I started not to like him when I started to see that, because I grew up with the boxing of the 90s, and I really like all the fighters that went from Michael Moore. I liked Evander Holyfield. There was a lot of fighters that I used to like around that time. And I felt like, and I can, you can compare the past and look at what we have now. So I felt like he wasn't just giving us the best fights. So, right now, how I see things, Canelo also left when he was in 160. He asked for the franchise belt to avoid Jermall Charlo, because it's going to be his mandatory. Totally skipped him. Just never got undisputed with Dimitrius Andrade, etc., etc., etc. And this is not the heart of a real champion. This is somebody who is trying to just make money. And I don't care if you post Canelo Alvarez as the most commercial fighter. I got no problem with that. You're absolutely right. I have a problem, though, when you are saying that this guy is a great and legendary fighter, because a great and legendary fighter would take all the fights, okay? He wouldn't pick British fighters over, American fighters. American fighters are the top of the elite, okay? If you're not fighting American fighters and you're choosing British fighters, then you are cherry picking, because British fighters, when they come to America, and I've seen it many times in sparring, and I've seen them fight against, American high quality, they don't really do too well. Even Derek James at one point was accusing Kell Brook for his record because he was fighting a lot of British fighters, right? That's when he was going to face Errol Spence, 2017. And he's right. So I never really liked Canelo Alvarez. Then obviously he puts rehydration clauses to certain fighters. I mean, just things that you make you not want to believe in a fighter like that. On top of that, he was caught, doing Glenbural. People say, well, the meat was tainted and, he's in Mexico. You can say whatever you want, but at that point, he was living in Los Angeles. And, this guy is making millions of dollars. I mean, this guy can get shipped beef from Thailand, via USPS or DHL the next day if he wanted to. Okay, so I don't believe the tainted meat excuse. He's a professional. He knows what he's doing. He makes a lot of money. And it's really sad that, a fighter of that caliber being caught doing clenbuterol, which is something to actually mask other things that you put in your system. It goes away around 3 days in your system. This is the guy that people upheld here, right? And I just never liked the guy. I don't think personally, I'm sorry, you sound like a hater or something, but I don't believe he became undisputed at all at 168. A lot of people call him undisputed, but to me, he basically was given the belt. You don't believe me? Just go check The Athletic. They have a report. It says that Canelo requested for the fight of Avi Gildrum because Mauricio Suleiman had already given him the belts. Even Mauricio Suleiman had told that. So he asked for the fight for Gildrum. He could have asked for David Benavidez, or the WBC could have actually suspended David Benavidez for 6 months and then say, okay, you can fight Gildrum right now, but you have to make that fight with David Benavidez. They never did that. So there's just so many things with this man, and I don't believe he'll fight. Well, we'll get to that in a second. Anyway, so before this whole drama started, I told everybody about a year ago that if he's going to fight a fighter, he'll probably fight another British fighter because that's what he targets. He targets the Billy Joe Saunders, Callum Smiths. They all fight against each other. Now he's going to fight this guy, John Ryder. And John Ryder lost against Callum Smith and Rocky Fielding, and he fought Rocky Fielding, and that's Canelo Alvarez, and he gave him a rehydration clause. And this was for an interim championship too. I mean, this guy, no matter where you look at it, it's just rehydration clauses. He fights guys that are in the latter end of their careers. He really chose, if you think about it, the fight with Gennady Golovkin. Well, actually, he chose Bibble because Gennady Golovkin was in the package, but he could have chosen the package of PBC, which was $100 million, where that would have included David Benavidez and Jermall Charlo. Now, Jermall Charlo is another poodle who also doesn't want to fight anybody. He talks a lot, but never fights anybody. We'll get to him in a different day. But Canelo Alvarez, I mean, he chose the package that was $80 million that Matchroom gave him. And the reason why he chose Bibble, because there was Gennady Golovkin in the package. And they didn't even want to negotiate a package with Dimitrius Andrade, which has been a ghost that is always going to be attached to his name. You can say a lot of things about Canelo Alvarez, but there's no excuse, of the fighters like John Ryder, who's he fighting now. I mean, the guy has already, 3 losses, maybe 5 losses, I don't know, something like that, 5 losses. And it is what it is. Now, Dimitrius Andrade was normally, when you're the champ, the WBO champ, what happens is that they rank you right away and they put you directly as a mandatory of the champion, right? But they didn't do that with Dimitrius Andrade. At first, they were going to do it. Then they're like, okay, well, you got to fight an elimination bout with Zach Parker. And what happened is that Andrade was going to have a fight with Zach Parker for $1.8 million. He got injured. Injuries happen. That's normal. 5 months after, he never rejected the fight or broke the contract. He went back to the contract, but they wanted to give him a new contract now, saying that he had to pay. They were only just going to give him $300,000. So when you go from 1.8 to $300,000, and that's not even what you're going to obtain, and you got to fight in England, it's obvious that they didn't want him to fight because that's such a low ball offer that it's almost like Queensberry Promotions was allied with the WBO to say, let's just not put Dimitrius Andrade as a mandatory for Canelo Alvarez. So that didn't turn out too well. Then, Zach Parker lost against John Ryder, and he got injured as well, and now Canelo's fighting John Ryder. But I had already predicted this because I knew that he was going to pick a British fighter. That's what he does. I mean, that is who he is. I mean, he should, if Canelo's going to be remembered for something, is fighting British fighters. That's how I see it. And, putting rehydration clauses and, other things too. But I mean, we're not stupid, right? I mean, I consider the audience and people who are here, I mean, just open-minded and not closed-minded, and just, a fanatic guy who is just so, gripping Canelo so hard that there's just no brain inside of those thoughts, right? And that's not the fight that nobody wants to see. I didn't want to see him against Children, and I didn't want to see him against John Ryder. The guy clearly doesn't want to fight David Benavidez. I mean, the most he could have done, to be honest, is give Jermall Charlo an offer, and I believe Canelo can beat Jermall Charlo. I don't believe he can beat Dimitrius Andrade, but I do believe he can beat Charlo. And John Ryder, it's just, I mean, if you're not going to fight David Benavidez next, and they said that they're going to put, I think, Caleb Plant and David Benavidez, one of them is going to be his mandatory, but I guarantee he's going to leave that spot vacant. He's not going to fight the winner, especially if David Benavidez goes and destroys Caleb Plant. Canelo Alvarez will have no intentions of fighting, him. He's in a bad position already because now he also has another mandatory, which would be Dan Morrell Jr., which is the other interim champion, I think, for the WBA, if I'm not mistaken. He ain't going to fight him because Dan Morrell Jr. is a very dangerous fighter, and he'll beat Canelo Alvarez too. So I just think that at this point, it's just, if he's not going to fight all these guys, it's just better he retires. And I hate to break the ice here, but let's just be honest here. The dude came from 154, and he never fought Charlo, and he never fought Andrade. He could have been undisputed in 161 for $40 million. He chose, in a strange move, fight against Sergey Kovalev for $35 million instead of $40 million, when he could have done history in Mexico for being the first middleweight undisputed champion in their history. He 160. That was an opportunity to be that, but he didn't do it. So he never fought Charlo. He never gave Erislandy Lara a rematch. I think he should have. I think it would be smart. The guy who he beat was Gennady Golovkin, but to be honest, and let's just go by what we say here, Gennady Golovkin was never an undisputed champion, so you couldn't say he was the best in the division. So if you're coming and saying that he was the best in the division, I'm sorry, I have bad news for you. Gennady Golovkin was never undisputed in his division, so he could have never been the best. Yes, he had 3 belts at the time, but you got to be undisputed. You got to beat everybody. That's why you clean your division, to make sure that you become undisputed. And that's something that Bernard Hopkins did during his time, right? He became undisputed at middleweight, right? But Gennady Golovkin is not like he's fought Halls of Famers. I mean, really the only Hall of Famer that he fought is Canelo Alvarez. That's about it. And he tied once, and then he lost against Canelo Alvarez the second fight, and then the third fight as well. But Daniel Jacobs is not, I mean, I doubt they're going to put him as a Hall of Famer. Daniel Jacobs beat Peter Quillen, and Gennady Golovkin never fought or beat really a Hall of Famer. So who is this Gennady Golovkin guy? Now, you can say he had all these defenses and whatever, but he never went up. he would never went up to a different division. He could have fought Ward, right? If he would have beat Ward, wow, then that would have been a different story. He never became undisputed in his own division. I mean, the guy didn't do anything. I mean, let's just be honest here. He's you can't put him at the same caliber. I mean, you could maybe put him at the same caliber as a Kalsagi, but at least Kalsagi fought other fighters too. But and they were on their way out. I understand, but either way, at least the names that he had were better than the ones that Gennady Golovkin had, and he had the chance to become undisputed after Canelo Alvarez plenty of times, but he was still looking for that ticket meal. And this is the guy who Canelo beat, right? But he didn't beat the best guy in 160. That's my point. So you got 3 fighters that he's avoiding already: Jermall, Dimitrius Andrade, and a second fight with Erislandy Lara. You have to have a trilogy. I mean, if it's a close fight, you should fight again. Then David Benavidez is there. He's not fighting him either. He's going to duck Damaro Jr. I mean, if you look at the whole scheme, I just highly doubt that he's going to fight any of these fighters. So I would recommend that Canelo retires from boxing because this guy is holding the division hostage. Okay, something that we can't just stress enough here. If you're not going to fight these fighters, okay, just vacate your titles. There's no point why to keep the titles if you're not going to get these mandatories. If as soon as he sees David Benavidez, I can almost guarantee he's going to vacate his title. I can tell you right now. In fact, I remember Eddie Reynoso saying that, and that was before the people fight, but right, like a month before, he said, we will fight David Benavidez in 2 years when he is ready. 2 years? I mean, the guy is ready right now. Now, if he would have been smart, he would have fought him instead of fighting Rocky Fielding when he went up to 168. He could have just actually fought him there when David Benavidez was fresher, right? And he would have had a better chance of beating him. In fact, Canelo could have beat him because he had more experience. Not anymore. David will crush him, and he knows that. So I believe that Canelo Alvarez is secretly cheering for Caleb Plant to beat David Benavidez, because if David Benavidez crushes Caleb Plant, and I think that's how the fight's going to end up, I mean, it's just now it's so obvious that even your own fans, unless they're mentally ill, they're just not going to keep defending you. And, a lot of Canelo fans are already abandoned the ship. So I just think that this guy, it's just not good for boxing. Give me a Jojo Diaz or a Gabriel Rosado any time of the year, because win, draw, or lose, these fighters are always facing the hard challenges. They're not afraid. They're picking people on their primes. They're not putting in rehydration clauses. They're just fighting. And you're going to lose if that happens. Give me those fighters. Give me a Deontay Wilder, a guy who will say no to this mischievous designation called the franchise belt in order to fight King Kong Ortiz, who is a dangerous fighter and nobody wanted to fight. He took the fight. Give me those sort of fighters. That's the fighters that boxing needs. But we don't need these commercial boxers who are basically there just to make money. There are titles for a reason. The titles is what's going to make your legacy. Whatever you make in money and cash or whatever, that's not going to make your legacy. And just because you make more money or you're more commercial, it doesn't mean you are a better fighter. That doesn't mean anything. It just means you make more money because you might be white. You might sell out more because you can speak some English and Spanish. You want to, bring a different audience. There's a lot of different factors. I mean, you might be a badass like Floyd Mayweather Jr., where you speak a lot of shit, and they're fun to watch. Some of the old HBO Face to Face with Max Kellerman and Floyd Mayweather Jr. Those were fun, but if you're selling, that's one thing. Ronald Romero sells the shit. He could sell a lot because he has a big mouth and talks a lot of crap. It doesn't mean he's gonna beat everybody in 140. It doesn't mean he's going to beat Alberto Puello. That doesn't mean anything. It just means that he has a mouthpiece, and people like, people who talk and all this garbage. So we got to get those things straight up a little bit more. And that fight with John Ryder, man, my point is that's a garbage fight, honestly. They're going to fight the 6th of May. That's when they have it planned. And the fact that he's choosing John Ryder was a prediction they already gave around a year ago. And it's just the same story and over again. So don't think that I'm here just attacking him because just feel like it, or I'm gonna bash him. No, I don't feel like that. Like, once again, there are other fighters that I like who have losses, but they're taking the risk. But I just cannot swallow that pill, man. I just can't do that. I mean, I just can't do it. So obviously he should beat John Ryder coming up if that's the fight that he's gonna take. But I highly doubt that he should be. I don't want him to be in boxing anymore. I think it's just a bad influence for boxing. Canelo Alvarez is just a bad influence for boxing. And what he is doing is he's setting up a standard that boxers choose and pick whoever they want. I know that that's the Mayweather doctrine, but the Mayweather doctrine is not the historical doctrine, okay? That's not the historical doctrine. Historical doctrine is you fight everybody and you try to become undisputed. In fact, Floyd Mayweather Jr. never became undisputed. I mean, that's logical, right? You can say he was this and that, but he was never undisputed. He was never undisputed champion. You can't really say that he was the best in the division because historically you have to be undisputed to do so. He wasn't undisputed in any of the categories where he fought. He wasn't undisputed in light. He wasn't undisputed in welter. But he says that, the titles don't matter. But then I remember, and this is the irony of everything, when Fight Hype went to his house, he showed his belts. And when they asked him, well, did you ever become undisputed? And they said, well, according to the WBC, if you have 3 or more belts, you already become undisputed. I'm like, wow, that's insane. I mean, that's just, you're making up your legacy because you didn't want to fight certain fighters. And that's the problem with boxing, so we at Golden Era, we're trying to revert that and go back to just fighting and, and if everything goes right, then, boxing should be a competitive sport, and you're going to see a lot of losses and a lot of records, but they're making the best fights happen. And like I said, give me an Adrian Broner who's fighting everybody. Give me a Jojo Diaz. Give me a Stephon Fulton. Give me an Amir Khan. He fought everybody. Give me those fighters. Give me those fighters who are risking and taking the challenges over these Canelo Alvarez fighters who are picking John Ryder's, man. Anyway, that's just my opinion on the subject. I have more to say, but, I'll reserve it for other videos. And, thank you for watching Golden Era. Subscribe to give us a like, and we shall check you out here later. Hagone, like the natives say in New Mexico, and we'll talk to you in the next one. Deuces Cruces.